Hello, Positive Filters listeners. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another special episode of the podcast. So recently I did a mentorship webinar with my good friends, Chris Fitzpatrick and Jennifer Santiago. It was a great event. We talked about the importance of mentorship and how impactful and powerful it is. So I was able to record that session, and I wanted to upload that for you, the listeners. So I wanted to say thank you so much to Chris Fitzpatrick for the opportunity. Check out the YouTube video in the show notes so that if you want to watch the webinar, you can watch it. But just wanted to send this love and share this opportunity or this engagement with you all, and open to your feedback. Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show.
All right, and we are live. It is 6:02 p.m. on Thursday, June 22nd. Welcome to everybody who's joining us for our Power of Mentorship webinar and fireside chat. My name is Chris Fitzpatrick. I am the Senior Manager of Talent Development for Creston Electronics and also a professional speaker. And I'm joined here by two dear friends, Jen Santiago and Phil Wilkerson, who I'm going to invite to introduce themselves now as well. And also, I'm going to be putting some contact information into the chat box. So anybody who wants to connect with us today, please do feel free to do so. We're going to give you all a bunch of ways to keep in touch with us. But then also, as a follow-up, you're going to get a list of the resources from the discussion today, as well as ways to keep in contact with the three of us. So Jen, why don't you kick us off with your intro?
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm really excited to be a part of this event tonight. Jen Santiago. I'm a talent acquisition manager with Enterprise Holdings. We're a global mobility company. I've had the opportunity to be part of the Enterprise team for just over 21 years. And in that tenure, I've had the opportunity to work with just amazing individuals who have mentored me, and I've had the opportunity to mentor. So this is a topic I am just so passionate about. I had the opportunity to work with Chris as well in his tenure at Enterprise, and I'm just a big Chris Fitzpatrick fan through and through. Right. I consider him a good friend, and as a former colleague, I'm really excited for the work that he's been doing with Creston and everything, and the big impact he's always made on Enterprise. So I'm really excited to be here and be part of the discussion. It's a topic I'm really passionate about.
Well, let's not entirely bury the lead, right? Jen hired me at Enterprise a few years into her 21 years there, and then was one of my mentors when I got into talent acquisition, which I've now been doing for 16 years.
Yep.
Believe it or not. So thank you for being a mentor to me, Jen. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I got plenty out of it too, which I'm sure we'll get into.
We will. Very cool. Phil.
Hi, my name is Philip Wilkerson. I work at George Mason Career Services as an employer engagement consultant. Just a fancy word to say I do employee relations. In addition to that, I am a husband and a father too. I like to just throw that in there because sometimes people like to throw in their titles, and I'm like, well, that's my more important role. Just as we're coming off of Father's Day, that those are really important roles in my life, and then I happen to have a job. In addition to that, I am a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and the reason I share that is because as we come up into this mentorship conversation, I feel like those external organizations are ways that I've been connected to mentors and mentees, and I'm just happy to be here. It's not like, I didn't have the good fortune like Jennifer to meet Chris in person, but we've been connected. Yes, we've been connected digitally, and I think it will come up about value sharing and how you meet people that I already know he's my man. We're gonna be good friends because of the things that we've talked, the things that we share, the ideals that he has, they align. So, I think, it's sometimes, you meet good people, you don't meet them in real life, but hopefully you do. And they're just as cool or not as tall because I'm short, but as cool as they are in real life. So thank you so much for inviting me to the discussion today.
Note to self: get lifts in my shoes for when I meet Phil Wilkerson in person.
No, I'm short. No, it's the opposite. Like, yeah, please. Like,
it's too funny. So cool. I love it. Yeah, and Phil, just I think the power of networking and presence online and everything like that. I think it's one of the things that kind of brought us together. And if I'm not mistaken, where I first connected with you is because you were doing the Twitter the tweet lunches for Eastern Ace for the PR team, which was a committee I used to chair at Eastern Ace. We're talking 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And I happened to just want to see what was up with Eastern Ace, and you and I became good friends, and that had to be a year ago now, right?
Yes, yeah. Obviously, yeah, going into it, I guess full circle, doing the Twitter chats, and I am a member of Eastern Ace. I'm currently a board member. And unfortunately, not say unfortunately, I'm meeting all these people that say they're not going to be at the conference. I'm like, man, now that I'm actually on the board, come to the conference. But it's through that organization I met a lot of good people now. And so, like I said, I'm a board member. I'm the director of technology and information management. And I've been doing stuff, and it's through those professional orgs similar to Alpha that I've been actually connected some really good mentors and mentees. So we're going to probably bring that up too, as well as how organizations really connect you with good people. And even that we had that Eastern Ace dialogue, like I might not be there, you might not be at the conference, but the same people and have those experiences so we can share that.
Networking, such a powerful tool. It's incredible. It really, really is. And, and for the folks who are here who are our attendees right now, as we're going through all this, we have some questions and things that we're going to talk about, but this is a super informal, more of a fireside chat type of an approach here. So as we're going through, use the Q&A and use the chat function and let us know what you want us to talk about, or if you have questions. And I also want to invite everyone to utilize the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. Put in the chat are you a fellow Garden Stater in New Jersey? Are you out Phil's way near George Mason? Are you out in California? Are you one of our international visitors? Let us know in the chat where you're coming in from, and then also feel free to put your LinkedIn in the chat to all the attendees and all the participants. And if you're watching on YouTube, put your LinkedIn in the comments section, because you never know when you're going to end up connecting with somebody who's going to be a future mentor or mentee to you. So please feel free to do that. Just make sure you switch over to everyone if you have that functionality. So you can toss questions in the Q&A. You can let us know what's going on in chat, but we really want to hear from you all, and that'll help guide the conversation as we go through. So diving into a few of the topics here, since we're right where we want to be, overall on the mentorship discussion, why is mentorship important? Let's attack it high level right off the bat. Yeah. Why are we even having this webinar? Why do we want to have a fireside chat on mentorship? Jen, why is mentorship important to you? Where do you see value?
Sure. I mean, it's the ability to almost have a crystal ball friend. We always think to ourselves, like, what would happen if this, or I'm nervous about that, or if I fail here. And when you have someone who is a mentor to you, you can have conversations with individuals that could have had similar experiences, similar challenges, and can help guide you through how they overcame them. So I think there's a tremendous value, not only for someone to have a mentor, but for someone to mentor others. I've seen it from both sides and experienced both sides. And I think it's just one additional relationship that can truly give both the mentee and mentor a competitive advantage through these conversations, as far as, how can I overcome this challenge? What would you do here? How have you done that? What was the best advice you were given? And you can, like I said, it's almost like having that extra competitive advantage and that extra relationship. And both people get to learn from each other. And I know we're going to dive into some more things about diversity within mentorships and value to both sides. But I just want to kind of kick it off and just kind of call it like that crystal ball relationship. When you have a mentor who you can kick ideas off of and ask advice for, someone who's had that type of experience, they can give you some really amazing insight and advice on any kind of challenges or questions that you may have professionally.
Never heard a mentor referred to in a crystal ball term. That is a completely new approach, and it's so cool. I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. Phil, tossing it to you, man. Why do you think mentorship is important? You're a guy who You talk about mentorship a lot. It's something you're clearly passionate about. As a matter of fact, you have an article that you wrote on the topic, the link to which we're going to be sharing with everybody after the webinar is over. So this is something you've given a lot of thought and intentionality to. Why do you think it's so important?
So I thought about this earlier, and I try not to sound real jaded, but I say it in the sense that there's a billion people in this world. And so with that being said, a lot of the things you want to do, you think, we are unique in our DNA, right? There's only one Philip Wilkerson. But the things that we want to do, and that's why I was smiling with the crystal ball. The things that we want to do have been done in some form or fashion before, right? Like let's get out of our own ego and think that like our path is the only path. Like we just even said it earlier, like I wasn't the first person doing Twitter chats, right? Like you did it earlier. And so having a mentor is an ability to connect with a person that has been down the path that you want to go to before you, right? And so you can it's a real living resource. It's a way to I'm a person, okay, reading it in a book is cool, but maybe talking to someone that's actually lived that experience is probably even better because we can have a conversation. Like if I read a book, it's one way, but if I talk to a mentor, it could be a dialogue. I can ask questions. I can ask follow-up questions. So I think the mentor is a great resource for learning and growing and professional development because it's actually going and you can actually talk to that person. And then on the inverse, why I think it's really important as the mentor is a way to low effort give back or create a legacy. I know some people here, they work in advancement or, they work with the money and they always say, was it time, treasure, and talent?
Yep.
Well, I'm broke. I can't give you no treasure. I ain't got no money for you to give treasure, but I can give you my time. I can give you my talent, to share that off. So mentorship is a great way to give back on a budget, right? Like it's a great way for you to feel like you're bringing someone else or doing something that's charitable or philanthropic, right? Without having to actually cost money. It just really costs your time. And so I think that's the importance on both, right? It's an opportunity to grow and learn from someone, and it's an opportunity to give back in regards to your bandwidth and budget.
I can hear an episode of Mad Men in the back of my head, and I hear Don Draper writing the line "mentorship, give back on a budget." I think you've just created the next 20 years of marketing for the concept of mentorship with that concept. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. So I think we all agree, right? And everyone said a little something about this. We find that mentorship is very important to the mentee to get coaching and direction and connection and somebody who can be a guiding force for them. We've also talked, and we'll talk more about the impact on the mentor, right, in terms of leaving a legacy, which, Phil, I'm so happy you brought that up. I think that's a great point. And then in the back of my mind, I keep thinking about the organization, right? So if the mentor-mentee relationship is happening within a particular organization, or even if it's not in the same organization, you still have two people who are benefiting and really developing skills that are going to bring something positive to whichever organization they're a part of. It doesn't just have to be a professional organization, right? This can have a positive impact on a school organization, right? Classmates, it could houses of worship, volunteer activities. I mean, any place where we go and we function, being a mentor, having a mentor, practicing mentorship, menteeship is more than likely going to bring some sort of value. What are some of the organizational impacts that you all think mentorship can have just by existing, just by the very fact that mentorship is occurring in an organizational ecosystem? How can that benefit the organization? Who wants to jump in on that one?
Go ahead, Phil. I'll have you kick it off, and then I'll add on the other side.
I'm doing a thing about at Mason right now as I analyze the importance of group, and I think it kind of aligns with it in another way. But the 3 R's: recruitment, retention, and resistance or resilience. And so I'll explain on an organizational structure. The opportunities to mentor or give guidance is going to bring new people. The fact that it's an opportunity that's available, people are going to say, wow, I can join this organization. I can be a part of this because I know that I'll be grown, I'll be groomed, I'll be supported and grown, right? On the opposite end, for retention, you're going to keep people invested on both ends. You keep the new people invested because they know that they got someone to reach out to and keep them, and then you keep the more seasoned people invested in a like an organization, because then they realize that, like, wow, I still can give back to this organization by bringing up the next leaders. And obviously you're grooming the next leaders, because when you're ready to go, you know that the organization is in good hands with the next generation of leaders. And then I say resistance or resilience is because just in a sense of belonging or going through adversity, or as Jennifer said earlier, having someone to talk to that's been through similar struggles, that's built your resilience, right? Like, you're like, okay, I'm not so alone. You know, like someone I looked up to, like, let's say on both ends, someone that I look up to, they went through it. They can make it. I can make it too. So that builds up my resilience, right? On the opposite end, someone that's made it through, in my mind, I'm like, if I push through and I make it, maybe someday someone's going to look at me as an example and I can rate, you know, like I got to push through, you know, for that unimaginary mentor out there in the world. Like I got to be resilient in this hard situation, not just for me, but for the future. So I think that organizationally, it really does align with that. The 3 R's I just made up that I think can really keep people invested, right? And keep them, it's an organizational thing. And you can go with that, whatever you want, and find different examples. But I really think an organization and invest in that will get people to stay, will get people to come, and will get people to thrive and actually push through adversity if they have mentorship involved.
The retention piece is such a great, I want to, recruitment and retention, one of the reasons I'm going to hone in on those two, and not just because those are things that I've been doing for the last decade and a half of my life, but you can put a dollar figure, organizations can put a dollar figure to how much it costs to recruit somebody and the cost of not retaining employees, right? There are estimates out there that say the cost of replacing an employee who leaves the organization is twice that person's salary, right? The cost of having to find them, the cost of the lack of productivity if that person leaves a lot of work behind and leaves a gap in the organization. The costs really add up. Some you can see and some you can't see. Lost productivity can be hard to put a dollar sign to, but recruitment and retention are major drivers of business success. So, that alone, what a tremendous impact mentorship has there. Jen, you've worked for, your enterprise career can buy booze, right? You've been in the game there for 21 years, right?
Yes.
Has anyone described it to you that way before?
Yes, I've thought about it that way.
Okay.
Like anyone born on my start date can go to a bar today.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly
yeah.
right. I mean, enterprise has done mentorship well for forever, right? How have you seen it benefit the organization?
And I think what's really important is that there's top-down leadership support of it and advocacy of it. And it absolutely does make an impact on the success of the retention and advancement and success of the employees. Employees that are more engaged, employees that are more motivated, employees that see someone in a leadership position that may look like them or they can relate to, or someone that mentors them, will stay and perform. There's McKinsey and Company and Sheryl Sandberg do a survey every year. It's called the Women in the Workplace Survey. It's a women in workplace study. And a lot of great data, and it's a great reference point if anybody wants to look it up. And one of the statistics shows that employees that have the opportunity to network with and interact with senior leadership will more aspire to be in their position. And mentorship programs have the opportunity to connect senior leadership with more of the entry-level employees, so they can get through those tough few initial rungs in management to get their way to senior leadership. We have a formalized program at Enterprise where it's kind of like a matchmaker, and it's matched based off of not chemistry, but compatibility and communication style and leadership styles. Mm-hmm. And what I found to be the beauty about the mentorship program that we utilize, it's called mentoringcomplete.com. And a few of the colleges that I work with also use it. I know Montclair State actually has a formal mentor program that in the business school, I've had an opportunity to mentor one of the students. And William Patterson has a formal mentor program, the Pesci Mentoring Institute. And they use similar online forums to just take it makes it very easy. And the beauty about the compatibility piece is that it really comes up with very diverse matches, which I think is amazing. And, so to have some type of formalized mentor program or mentorship encouraged by senior leadership, you're only going to see those positive outcomes. And to put some stats to it, when we've run these programs in the past, 100% or more received a promotion as part of being part of this program. And I mean by more because they received two promotions within that 12-month period.
Wow.
So I think that really kind of speaks for itself as far as the impact when done right with a structured program. So there's training involved, there's meetings, there's a contract that we sign. So there is commitment on both ends. But I think it's absolutely worth it. And there's so much value that comes out of it when it comes to the engagement of the employees, which when you have a more engaged employee, you're going to have a better performing employee. And what company wouldn't want that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's that productivity piece. Yeah, no doubt about that. And with my organization, with Creston Electronics, we have a formal mentoring program in the internship where every one of the interns we hire, they are paired with at least one formal mentor who is often not their direct manager, right? It's a different person to give them a sounding board and a new perspective, but that's an individual that we train and we provide tools to so that individual can provide this intern or this co-op student with what they need to be successful. And one of my favorite pieces to that is when somebody is an intern, gets mentored, has a lot of value from it, converts to a full-time role, and then the following year, they are mentoring an intern of their own. And it's an opportunity like that. That's the progression that Phil talked about, that paying it forward, right? You're building that skill set, that leadership skill set. And for the organization, now there's this constant churn of skill and institutional knowledge also that's being shared. So, and Jen, thank you for bringing up the Women in the Workplace study. I posted the link in chat. So anyone who's interested in checking out that study by McKinsey, use that the link that I just put in chat. And also, Jen, thanks for the Montclair State shout out. For anybody who doesn't know me really, really well, and if you know me even a little bit, you know that I am an alum of Montclair State and a proud Red Hawk. So we started talking about some stats here. So I'm going to drop a stat on everybody, and I'm going to put it in the chat for everyone who's out there as well. This came from a Forbes article, a tremendous article and a great resource. And according to this Forbes study, 76% of people think mentors are important, but only 37% have a mentor. Right. So better than 3 out of 4 people say, yes, mentorship is important. But less than 4 out of 10 say, and yes, I have a mentor. That's a heck of a delta. Right? That's a big gap between the two. Why do you think that gap exists? Phil, why do you think there's such a chasm between people who is supply and demand, right? People who think that mentorship is important and people who actually are participating in a mentorship relationship?
I saw this question earlier, and I actually did prepare my answer. But I think there's 2 things that I think, and data and numbers, right? Like numbers don't lie, but they might tell different stories. Is that maybe some people don't even know they're already in a mentorship relationship, like that awareness, right? Like some people don't realize that they already have a mentorship relationship in their life, and so they're going to indicate no, but in actuality, maybe they do. Like I was thinking earlier, like someone in my life, my father-in-law that just passed away, Jeff, he was a mentor. I never formally said, you are my mentor and guide me, sage one, right? But I looked up to him and I would say all the things that he checked, guidance and all that. He was a mentor. So I think that awareness. And then another one is, I think part of it, besides the awareness, is that we're going to probably get to it, is that it is daunting. And some people actually, I think, do not know the process on both ends, like how to become a mentor and find people to mentor. And on the opposite end, how to find a mentor as a mentee or protege or whatever you want to call it, because it's awkward or it kind of aligns with networking in general. And it's might be like, we don't know what the real ask or the duties or the commitment, it's not as just like super defined. And so I think those are the 2 main factors that I think contribute to that gap of, I know I need one. And if I actually have one, is maybe awareness and maybe how to do it or the ways of the process. So yeah, that's a long way to say that too. And I think I see some nodding of heads that there might be some agreement in that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that's definitely the case. Is just the awareness that they may already have a mentor, because we do surveys at Enterprise all the time. And people may not realize that they have someone that by definition could really be their mentor. We also talk about building employee support networks, and it's more of an informalized type of relationship to kind of get that mentorship started. Also identifying people that can really help sponsor you to identify mentors. So there's and getting advocates. So just networking in general and utilizing people that will go to bat for you. Make sure that you are, not letting them down if they do go to bat to you, that, be a good employee, be a good student, really, be professional in that type of setting. But I think it really also just comes down to, and Philip started to touch on this, is it's awkward to ask sometimes. And you just got to rip that Band-Aid off, and it's okay. Yeah. If you know that someone could really serve as a great mentor to you, I think the best way to kind of talk about it is just keep the conversation super positive. I know if somebody reached out to me and started the conversation by saying, hey, I watched the YouTube video of you, Chris, and Phil talking about mentorship. I loved your advice. I really value your opinion. Would you serve as an informal mentor to me, or even be a mentor to me? If you open up the conversation with some compliments, you got everybody's ears open.
Works on me every time.
We're definitely open to that conversation. And I think that there's a lot of professionals in the workplace. We have to remember that we have a multi-generational workplace, and individuals of all generations, I think, are really open to the idea. So just rip that Band-Aid off. Once you identify the right person through your support network, through advocates, through people that you trust, and just go out there, start that conversation, make it a positive one, tell them why you're asking them, and, really kind of talk about, understand what you're looking for. Do I need a long-term mentorship? Do I just need something to get ready for an interview? Do I need something for a particular project? Do I need to get my performance up? Am I interested in this industry? So sometimes it's more of a short-term thing without that much of a commitment. Understanding what you need out of this mentorship initially, I think, is really important. And then communicating that to someone who you would see as a value of the mentor. But just rip the Band-Aid. It's okay to ask. It doesn't have to be awkward, especially when you open it up with some compliments in the conversation.
Go ahead, Phil.
I was also going to say, sometimes you could formally ask, but sometimes, I'll be honest, I have a lot of mentors that I probably don't think I've even in my mind have actually called them a mentor out loud. But I think, to your point, Jennifer, that I stayed in touch with them continuously. I checked in with them every now and then. I asked for their advice, and they'd probably be like, yeah, I just give him advice from time to time. And like, in a sense, they are my mentor, but we just never just called it, right? Like there's been a time where someone was like I got on Instagram or LinkedIn, someone said, shout out to my mentor, Philip. I was like, I'm your mentor. I didn't even know I was. Like, I didn't even know that. Like, I was like, I would just give you advice every now and then when you text me, right? or email me. And so I think, that's why I love the beauty of the actual formalized one. Sometimes the formalized programs, you already know what it is. I want a mentor. They want to be a mentor. The title, that awkwardness, it's already eliminated. Sometimes it's just, as you just said earlier, is like, maybe you don't even have to use the word mentor, but you could say something like, I like what you're doing. I would love to stay in touch with you. I would love to ask you a few questions from time to time. If I ask you questions from time to time, what would work for you, and then that person, I'd love to chat with you from time to time. You do that over and over again. Technically, you enter in a mentorship relationship, but you just flat out didn't say it. And I think that goes to your point of ripping the Band-Aid off and being okay with reaching out and just being authentic and being intentional. I always tell people like that too, authenticity and intentionality, right? Be yourself. Ask what you really want. Like, I want to get ready for an interview, or I want to get ready for this, or I don't know how to navigate that. So that's intentional, right? And authentic, right? Like, I'm going to be myself while I ask these questions. I'm not going to be phony. I'm not going to be whatever. And normally, if it's not a sales pitch and you're not trying to say, hey, I want you to be my mentor, get me a job, most people will say, yes, I'll talk to you for 5 minutes. I'll talk to you for 10 minutes. Hit me up, ring me real quick. We'll have a chat, because they know that you're not trying to just get a job or get over on someone. People will love to talk and share their story and help. Because as we said earlier, it is a way to give back on a budget, right? Like, it makes people feel good. It makes people feel good when someone reaches out and says, I look up to you, and these are the things I look up to you for. I would love your advice on this. Of course, I'm gassed up. Right here on the line. If you say things good about me, and say I'm doing good things, I'll give you a shot. Shoot, you feeling my ego. And so I think sometimes we think of it, we overcomplicate it, and we think it's super formalized all the time, where it could just really just be authentic and just asking someone that you look up to for advice. And I think the last part is, if that person is not available, also don't like you said, rip the Band-Aid off. Also get out of your head is, it might not be you. It might be like, there's been many times where I say, hey, I look up to you. I really want to reach out to you. And they say, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't have the time. I'm really busy.
Don't have the bandwidth.
Yeah, I don't have the bandwidth. I'm not taking that personal. Yeah.
Nor should you, right? I mean, that's a great point that you bring up there, Phil, is that if you look at somebody, if I look at you, Phil Wilkerson, and I say, that's a guy I want to have mentor me because he's got it figured out. I love his energy. I love what he brings to the table. I think I've heard him talk. I love the things he says. I want to be mentored by him. It's safe to assume that you're not the only one who wants to be mentored by Phil Wilkerson, right? There's probably a fairly good number of people who are identifying these top quality, high quality mentors as mentors, right? There's a demand there. So yeah, you can get to a point where the mentor just feels, hey, I just don't know how much I can give you. In fact, I would feel worse if I consented to be your mentor and you expected something from that relationship, and then I couldn't, I overpromised and I underdelivered, and now you're in a worse position than you would have been if I just told you, no, I can't, I'm sorry, or just not now, and you were able to go find another mentor. And it's interesting, as I'm thinking through what we're all saying here, is that even though we're talking about mentorship in professional terms, right, how it helps impact us professionally in the workplace or in school or in organizations and everything, it's an intensely personal feeling to put yourself out there and ask somebody to mentor you and to be vulnerable, to open yourself up and to say, listen, here's something I'm struggling with. I'm having problems with A, B, and C, and I need help. People struggle asking for help all the time. Yeah. I mean, that's a massive topic in mental health right now, is just somebody being able to raise their hand and say, hey, I need help. Yeah. And that can be an intensely personal and vulnerable feeling. And so there's two terms rather, that I want to bring up that we haven't talked about just yet, that I think guide a lot of this conversation. One is empathy, right? Mentorship is an exceptionally empathic relationship where the mentee has to have empathy for the bandwidth of the mentor, and the mentor has to have empathy for what the struggle of the mentee will be. And then the other piece is psychological safety, is the mentor being able to create an environment where difficult conversations can occur with dignity being maintained, where the mentee feels safe, the prospective mentee feels safe. Or even if Jen came to me asking me to mentor her and I had to say, no, I can't, I was doing so in such a way that still helped encourage her and didn't break the relationship. And it can be really daunting for somebody to go into a discussion without knowing if there's empathy and psychological safety already established. Mm-hmm. So that can't be easy, I'm sure. Let's go into another kind of a deep topic here, because we have a great framework about what mentorship is, why it's important, why there are so many people who think it's important but don't have a mentor. But historically marginalized groups, right, including women and ethnic minorities, they already deal with systemic barriers to growth and success. And there's a study that was done by Pew Research Center and said 63% of women have never had a formal mentor. So more than well over half. So how important is mentorship to historically marginalized groups? Anybody can take it.
I think it's just, I obviously speaking as a female in the workplace, and working in the travel and transportation / automobile industry, it seems like it's a very male dominated industry. And, looking at our workforce, it could be challenging at times to see more female presence. What I learned pretty early on is, although it's nice to potentially have a mentor that looks like me and is the same gender or what have you, there's a lot of value to having diverse mentors. And I think the 63% of females that didn't have them, maybe they just assumed they should always be mentored by women. There's a lot that we can learn from, senior leadership from all different types of backgrounds. And, you're cutting off a lot of options for mentors if you're only seeking out someone who looks like you. Again, it's ideal, when I talk about mentorship and I provide advice on it, I usually kind of boil it down to two very simple criteria. Are they successful? And do you have a diverse mentorship? Different backgrounds, different life experience, maybe a different division or different department, or similar industry but different role. And that's where you can really break through on the growth piece and learn. The other piece to that too is I think the comfort level of having a working relationship or some type of mentor relationship with someone that you assume may have a different type of communication style, or you may not think you can connect with them. So you don't seek out mentorships with individuals that don't look like you. Right. And you're really kind of just shutting the door on what could be amazing relationships. So when we talk about, marginalized groups that may not have as much mentorship, I think we need to reframe our thinking and really open our minds to all the different possibilities of mentors. That I don't just have to specifically look for a female. I don't have to specifically look for a working mom in human resources. I can learn from a lot of different business leaders, and I've had mentors that are both male and female from all different backgrounds and different divisions in different companies. And I've learned from all of them. And I think just being more open-minded will really open more doors for mentorship.
Jen, you mentioned the automotive industry and the kind of historical context of it being a very male-dominated industry. And now here I'm in the audiovisual industry, and when you think about it, larger STEM and engineering, right? So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which historically has been very male-dominated as well. How pervasive do you think the issue is of a young girl, middle school, high school age, looking at an industry or a company or an organization or a major like engineering or like mathematics and saying, I don't see myself there because I don't see anybody that I could emulate who looks like me. So I feel as though my path is closed. How much do you think that's preventing the next generation of leaders from getting into some of these industries because they don't see mentors who remind them of themselves?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, it definitely still impacts it, but I think times are changing.
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot more, girls in STEM, girls who code, women in the automobile industry. I mean, our CEO is a female. We have a lot of female leadership here within enterprise at all the different layers. And, when I look across our organization in the automobile industry, it looks very diverse. And I love that. And that's because it's based off of talent and performance. And even in the areas of STEM, I think it definitely does make an impact, but I think times are changing and it's a wonderful thing. I'll even give you an example. I have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I get flyers all the time about coding for girls, STEM for girls, different programs at the colleges and the community colleges, and introducing it even at the elementary level and introducing that conversation. And just making sure that, bringing it back home as a family, making sure that the message is, if that's something you're interested in, you're good at, you do it. It shouldn't matter what the people that currently do it look like. So just making sure that families at home and encouraging that conversation at home to really explore different opportunities, whether you think they're male or female dominated, it shouldn't matter. If you're great at it and it interests you, you should explore it. So I think, yes, historically, it definitely has been pervasive, but I'm very optimistic about a lot of the changes I've seen and a lot of the programs that are growing in that area.
Love it. Phil, let's toss to you. So same discussion, right? About it's historically underrepresented groups. How important is mentorship to them? And do you think barriers exist to mentorship for those groups?
Yeah. And I think, from the lens, I totally agree that if you hold out for those that look like you, you might be waiting. It just might be the space. Just let's address systemic barriers already. Like you might be the only Black person in the room. That's what it is. So if I waited for someone that looked like me in leadership, then I'm gonna be waiting. I need to make sure that I do connect with people with different perspectives. But I will say this right now, though, if I'm going to connect with someone from a different space or different identity than me, then they need to clear my vetting system in regards to whether I feel like they're a safe person or not. And so I shared that in my article that I do have mentors that are Black males just like me, but then I also have mentors that are white females. And the way that I vet it beyond, the color of my skin, all that, is the values that they share. Do they actually speak things out loud in spaces or advocate for those that are different? That's how I know. And so I wrote this article with Samara Reynolds, and I say her name, I give her flowers all the time. She is probably one of the most impactful mentors that I've ever had. And the way that I knew that was just how she just carried herself. I could tell that she cared about issues that disproportionately affected Black people by how she is and how she treats people. And also understood too, like, people, like you say, sometimes your actions speak louder than your words. The way that her staff talk about her to others, not being paid and not having to, I was making note of that, right? And so I knew that she saw me for who I was. Because I think the thing that we all, we want to get away from for diversity is that we have this like color blindness, like, oh, there's no difference, there's no color. No, there is differences. And we want to recognize that, and we want to address differences, but we also want to celebrate it, right? That's what real diversity, equity, and inclusion is that we don't say, okay, everything, I don't see color. Like, that's actually more damaging, right? The better way is saying, I see you as a Black male. I understand that this is disproportionately not fair. These are some issues that you need to think about. These are things that I'm going to say that you're in rooms that when I'm in a room that you're not in, I'm going to speak up on your behalf. Those things. And so when a person that does that is a different identity than me, then I trust them. You're right. Then it does go to, I don't care what color and whatever they are, because I know that person sees me for me. And so those values speak. So I think there is a value to both. Having a mentor that shares the identities like you and difference, because you get different perspectives, or even in a sense of power. They have access to rooms and spaces that you don't have, and they can bring you up and put you in those rooms. We talk about the difference between sponsorship and mentorship, and we can go further along that, but that's what I really mean by that. Mm-hmm. But then also on the flip side, I will talk about as a father to two young boys, right? There's something about seeing someone that looks like you do the things that you want to do. It sets the tone. It really lowers the instances of imposter syndrome. When you see someone else that made it off their merit and hard work that looks like you understand that when you make it off your merit and hard work, that you made it there, that you're not an imposter, that there's instances that disproportionately imposter syndrome hits marginalized groups. Yeah. And so when you see someone that look like you, and you're like, man, I look up to my man, he did it. And he's like, Phil, I felt that just like you. I felt, the only in that room. That also is a good part of that mentorship, because you feel that empathy, and you feel that that person has been in my shoes before. So yes, it's almost like a yes and. I think there's value to both. You have to have mentors of different identities, but vetted, that you can feel safe with. And then you should have mentors that are same identity. Also, I was about to say that should be vetted too, because there's also people that look like you and should be your mentors that are toxic as I don't know what, right? And just because you're a Black male, don't mean you're gonna be my man. Like what's it called? All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Meaning like values. I think the values is the universal thing, right? That's the humanizer of across identities. Is if this person is sharing identity, values, they're integral, they're honest, they're compassionate, they're kind. That's one of my biggest ones. I don't care what you are you kind? That really speak that's a firm one. And I think there's value to both. And I found instances where the people that have values but look different or act different, they really enhance me as a person.
Yeah. Phil, I'm thrilled that you brought up earlier. You were talking about the idea of color blindness working against what really, inclusivity and DEI efforts and things along those lines, because that's a really important thing to mention. And it's a powerful topic, right? And then from my perspective, being a white male who had lots of examples to look up to when I was younger, and now being in a position of privilege, right, is how am I using my role and my opportunity to remove barriers from other people, systemic and otherwise. And it brings up, we've talked about mentorship, and we've talked about a lot of ships, right? So I'm going to throw one more ship into the dock here. We're setting sail today, and that's allyship. right? It's also a great opportunity if you are mentoring somebody who is different from you, and not just gender or not just race, but if you're mentoring somebody from the LGBTQIA plus community, if you're mentoring somebody with a disability, somebody who is identifies as neurodiverse, right? What you're also doing is creating an opportunity to be an ally, right? I'm not talking about virtue signaling. I'm talking about the real chance to say, hey, listen, I want to help. I want to guide you because I understand you're up against some stuff and I may not understand all of it, but I'm going to empathize with you. I'm going to try. And I want you to let me know what I can do or where you need help, right? I can be an ally to you. And a good friend of mine, Althea Ricketts, she and I are on the Diversity Council for AVIXA, which is the AV industry's nonprofit support organization. We were on a panel about allyship not too long ago, and she mentioned something that really stuck with me. She said, allyship means you ride with me even if you're not from me, right? So you don't have to look and you don't have to be the same race or be the same gender. Allyship just means that we're riding together, no matter what it is or who you are. And I just always love that idea. Again, provocative topic. I mean, a lot to cover here. Go ahead, Phil. Yeah.
No, I think that, and people can talk about allyship and conspirator and all that. And like, this words is words, but really the actions. But I always thought about this is that how impactful you care about someone that's different than you when you have a personal connection. And you also address and you lower your biases and it's a growing opportunity. So we'll talk about the mentor, right? I identify I'm a cisgender heterosexual male, right? But my connection to the LGBT community is more firm when I feel a personal connection to someone that I was like, I have a cousin, right? My cousin Gerald. And I was like, I would hate for anyone to show my cousin Gerald hate or hate on him or hurt him or anything, right? And a lot of people talk out of pocket until it's close to home. Have you always see those parents that like, I don't care about gay people. And then they realize one of their children is gay. And then they're like, oh my goodness, I would never abandon my child. You know what I'm saying? So think about that. When you have a real empathy, like you say, like you think about it, like I don't share that identity, but think about like that's someone's mom or dad or daughter or son or cousin, or like I would not want something to be, hurt them or be a barrier or them told that like they're happy about science. And I would hate for someone to say, no, you can't do that, right? I wouldn't want to talk to someone like that. And so I think mentorship is a great way to combine that allyship, because then you can really see it. Like when I mentor people with different identities, I'm like, dang, these structures or these systems, they're not fair for this person I care about. I actually care about this person. It's made me more vocal about issues that are not even my issues anymore, right? I mean, not my issues anymore, but like it makes you more vocal because you realize that like, okay, this does not actually affect me, but this affects someone I really care about. And I get to ask them questions. I get to say like, wow, I've had mentors or mentees of other things. I say, wow, that's really not fair. Can you tell me a little bit more about that experience? And I've learned more. Once again, you're learning. Like I get to learn from a mentee and say, yeah, that's not fair. They talked to me like this. They did this to me. Like, dang. And so now I go into new situations. We think about it too. It's like, okay, what are the words I'm using? Am I exhibiting the things that would hurt my mentee? Am I saying slurs that would hurt my mentee? Am I sharing language or putting policies in place that would hurt my mentee because I have like a person I could pretend like they're in that situation, right? And so I do really think that mentorship, I love that part about identities, across identities. That's the part too that helps, is that when you're mentoring someone of a different identity, it does hopefully build up your empathy, give you a new perspective, and hopefully it gives you some juice and some advocacy. Like you'll say, okay, I'm gonna speak up because I feel really empowered to help someone I care about.
Yeah, definitely.
When you do that, usually you're more adamant about someone you care about. You feel like you're not scared about risk. You're not scared about repercussions because you're like, I don't care. I care about this person. And hopefully someone would do the same for me. So that, I think I've challenged things. I was like, back in the day when we used to say, oh, that's gay. Now I say like, don't say that. That's not right. You don't say that. Like, that's my, like you speak up for people and you're like, you actually don't care about speaking up because you're like, that's my family. I don't want you talking about someone I care about like that. And you do it.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, Phil. I'm really glad that you brought that up. I mean, words really do matter, right? They really do. And also, I think that because we talked about the benefit to the mentee, we talked about the benefit to the mentor, we talked about the benefit to the organization. And Phil, when I was listening to what you were just saying, it kind of sparked a thought in my head. We could probably also spend a whole other half hour talking about the benefit to the community. Right. So even outside of an organization's four walls, people who mentor and are mentored and who are practicing some of the things you're just talking about, right? That empathy and that understanding of, even though you are not the same as me, I care about you and I want to see good things for you. It creates this self-awareness, right? The building block of emotional intelligence. It creates this self-awareness that I think just makes us better people, makes us better citizens. We think beyond ourselves. So now we have a quartet of benefits to a mentorship relationship. Hard to believe we've already been doing this for 50, not 15, 50 minutes. So I want to remind everyone who's listening in, if you have questions or anything you'd like us to touch on or to cover, please hit us up in the chat or use Q&A, because we're going to have some time for audience Q&A as well. Toss it in there and we'll pivot to your questions as well. But Jen, I want to toss a question to you. We touched on this a little bit earlier, right? That delta between people who think mentorship's important and people who actually have a mentor. So a college student, a new professional, or even an experienced professional who's just never gone down the mentorship path before comes to you and says, Jen, I just don't know where to start on identifying and connecting with a mentor. What advice do you have for them? Just somebody who does not know where to begin.
Sure. I think it really starts with determining what your specific needs are at the moment. What are you looking for out of a mentor relationship? And identifying whether it is, again, more of a short-term piece, a long-term piece, industry related, professional related, maybe some type of mentorship on your college campus. I'll speak to a specific example. Let's call it, you're a brand new graduate and you just got into a company and you really want to hit the ground running. Mentorship is important. How do you identify a mentor as a new employee in a company? Initially you're going to, obviously use your networking skills. You're going to, connect with people. You're going to have teammates. You're going to have a direct manager or supervisor. You're going to start building relationships from the beginning. So I would recommend, within your first 30 to 60 days, just really kind of navigate the company culture. And it's usually not too hard to identify, who the positive impact, people who make a positive impact and people that really just kind of like go in for the paycheck, do their thing and then go home. Individuals, obviously, that have been promoted, individuals that are high performing, that are successful, that are engaging, to Philip's point, that share your values. It doesn't take too long to identify who those individuals usually are. And if they have those great values and they are fitting all of this framework of who you would like to be potentially mentored by, or at least seek out advice from, then, they would definitely, I would imagine, be open to that type of conversation. But let's say before you go and, do that big ask, use your support people. Initially, it's sometimes just the HR team. These are people that onboarded you, recruited you, interviewed you. They know a lot about you from taking you through the hiring process. They know most likely your manager. So they could be a support person for you. Maybe it's someone who you work very closely with, you've become very friendly with over the course of the past, 30 to 60 days. Or maybe it is your direct manager that you identify as a support person there. Talk to them about get some advice from them. Who do you think would be a good mentor? Or you could say, I've identified this person that could be a really good mentor. Do you have any feedback or have any advice that, you could share with me to ask them to be a mentor? Or just simply ask for an introduction. Also, utilize networking opportunities. Even in the remote hybrid type of setting, whether it's through meetings, I think companies have gotten very creative with still trying to create networking meetings. Or if you have those in-person networking opportunities, that's where you really build your network. So get your employee support network, get your support people, ask them for referrals. And then just go ahead and honestly, when you go out and start that conversation with someone who could be a mentor of yours, identify what you want and really just kind of communicate that and just be like, I really just need some advice to navigate the HR world, or I need some advice on how did you hit your sales goal so early? Maybe set some guidelines, talk about what you would maybe be looking for. And again, we touched on this already. Be open to what that feedback could be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that mentor may say, you know what, I could do a quick phone call and then maybe we can meet in Q2, which is a few months later. Or that mentor, again, may not have the bandwidth or time. They could be a good mentor. Then you know what you could do? You could say, you know, I really appreciate that. And, you know, I totally understand. Do you have any recommendations of someone else who may at this time have the bandwidth or could be of assistance to me as well? Ask that person for a referral. Really just it's about utilizing your communication skills. Please do not underestimate the true importance of interpersonal communication. I know we've gotten into this world of virtual and the technology piece and communicating through our phones and texts and emails. Please do not underestimate the value of that true blue, authentic, and intentional, as Philip said. I think it's great advice of these in-person conversations or live conversations. That's where the sincerity comes through. So just building the relationships, determining what your needs are, utilizing your employee support network and support people to identify that person, and then just communicate, you know, what your needs may be to that individual. But also be a good mentee. You know, if somebody commits to being a mentor to you, you have to be respectful of that. Be respectful of their time. If they set up a meeting to sit down with you, or it's a lunch meeting, or maybe just like a 15-minute Zoom meeting to touch on some different topics, make sure you're coming to the meetings prepared. Make sure that if they give you constructive criticism, that you accept it positively, and understand that it's not always easy for an individual to give constructive feedback on things that people may need to work on. So it truly does come from a place that they care, usually if it's delivered in the right way. And if the mentor makes any suggestions and asks you to, you know, follow up on some commitments, make sure you follow up on them. Follow the advice, test it out, and really just kind of enjoy the relationship. So make sure that you're doing your part as a mentee to kind of maintain that relationship as well.
Phil, I'll toss a new question to you, Jen. You just absolutely knocked it out of the park there. It's terrific, terrific advice. So Phil, when somebody's looking for a mentor, you touched on this a little bit earlier, what are the most important qualities they should be looking for? And let's have a little bit of fun. I'm also going to toss it into a poll here and see what people think. But if somebody were to ask you, you know, where should I start looking for qualities in a mentor? What are the good qualities in a good mentor?
I mean, that's like, you know, like I said, that's like telling you to pick your favorite child, which I'm not going to do because it varies, right? But
depends on the day.
Yeah, you know, I love, yeah, that's shout out to my kids. But I think in reality, like you said, what are the best qualities? I think before, it's similar to networking. I always tell people, before you go out, go within. You need to have an assessment of what's important and value to you at that moment before you go seeking. So for instance, as I said, I know my core values. You know, you can do a value sort, whatever. You can write it down, affirmate, whatever. But know yourself. Like these are things that are really important to me. And so thus, the person I'm looking up to, the person I'm reaching out to, the person I want to be my mentor, hopefully the things that are really important to me are important to them as well. And like I said earlier, one of the things that are super important to me, regardless if you're the smartest in the room, the most handsome, gorgeous, whatever, is kindness, right? Like that's mine. Like, I really just don't want to, like, as simple as it could be, I don't care if you're a billionaire and you got all the money and all this, and you're just not kind. I don't want anything to do with you. I don't care. I don't want your advice. I don't want to get to where you are. You know, like, and they're like, Philip, you really standing on that? No, I would not want to be a billionaire in the path of unkindness. Like, I'll find someone else to try to be a billionaire, like, because that's important to me. And so when I look for a mentor, I look for those things. Like, one, I guess I look for like where I want to go to. That's another thing you need to look in. Like, where do I want to go? Because then that's how you kind of vet them. Like, if I want to be a CEO, I probably should try to find a CEO to be a mentor. So kind of that assessment of where you want to go first. And then additionally, those values. I think that is crucially important, because you should not just be haphazardly just adding people on LinkedIn, haphazardly going to networking events and just handing out business cards. You should actually have some structure or some actual thought to it. Like, I want to go to this because I wanted to connect with a CEO. I want to connect with a person that's a good coder or whatever. Like, I want to do that because those are things I want to be. And additionally, hopefully the person I'm connected with is kind or they're honest or whatever. And there's ways that, you know, experience teaches those things, right? You might not get to know that someone's kind on LinkedIn, right? Like, you're not, you might not know that, but like you can read the room on the first conversation, and that 15-minute conversation, like, wow, I got off that phone call and that person was just talking down to me or being condescending or just rude. That didn't feel good. I just didn't get a good vibe. I don't need to stay in touch. I don't think that's the person I want to follow up with as a mentor.
Phil, to be fair though, I knew you digitally before I knew you on a call or a meeting or anything like that. And by the things you were doing in the community and the people you were talking to and the things you were talking about, I had a pretty good idea you were a decent dude.
I know it could be Cap. I don't know. You know, like I mean, and sure, but I mean, I'll say this too. I think it could have been right. It could have been some facade. It could have been like, you know, I'm putting on thing. But I'll also say this too, though. But I bet this. I will stand firm to this. If you went around and asked people around me, though, was that verified? Hopefully, knock on wood, and hopefully people will co-sign that it wasn't just words. That people will like actually say, I'm kind. So that kind of goes into my vetting thing too. It's like most times when I get connected with a mentor, I see how they treat others too and watch or observe. I mean, you probably could just see how I comment to other people or how I like in group text that I like just really was nasty to other people. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you could take my word for it, but also I think understanding too, like be very observant how they treat other people or how what have been other mentees interaction with that mentor, right? Like if you're a young person and you say like, I'm going to go talk to Phil, my biggest advocates are not adults. My biggest cheerleaders sometimes have been young people like, yo, you need to go see Phil. You need to go talk to Phil. They coach me up and they put me on and refer me to mentees. So I think that speaks volumes, right? How other people are talking about you to connect you. So I think those values, knowing your values in yourself and knowing where you want to go, that'll help you direct and channel what's important for your mentor.
Love it. Love it. And the poll results are in. So we did launch a poll and we got 100% participation from the attendees. And our top three answers, this is my Family Feud side coming out. Top three answers are on the board. Number three, Phil, was kindness. 13% of our respondents agreed with you and said, yeah, kindness is the most important trait in a good mentor. Number two answer is availability, right? So having a mentor who is available to mentor me, what the old axiom is, the best ability is availability. 38% of our attendees said availability. And the number one answer, and I have a video on YouTube that agrees with this, 50% of our attendees said trustworthiness. And it brings me back to reading The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni, and that the building block, the foundation of the high functioning team is trustworthiness. And when trust erodes, everything else, it's like building a castle in the swamp, to go Monty Python, right? Building a castle in the swamp. It doesn't have a strong foundation, it's going to topple over and fall into the swamp. That's what trustworthiness is to me. If I don't trust my mentor, there's no relationship. It's over. So I mean, there's so many different ways. I think all of these answers are infinitely defensible, right? There's so many qualities in a great mentor. And just to echo what Phil said, knowing your values and what's important to you as an individual, that brings us back to that self-awareness piece and emotional intelligence. The more self-aware you are, I think the easier you're going to find it to go out and find a mentor. So I want to wrap up this portion of the webinar. I want to thank everyone for attending. We're still going to answer questions in Q&A and chat, but I want to ask Jen and Phil if they have any final thoughts that they want to provide. Then I'm going to stop the recording and then we'll stay on for some Q&A. But Jen, parting thoughts on the topic of mentorship or anything we've covered today.
Sure. First, I love this opportunity to be here. I personally learned from the conversation today as well, which is just my mindset. I always try to go into things with an open mind and learning, and that's how I always just try to continue to grow. And I just have to say that, prior to working in enterprise in other positions, I didn't have a lot of guidance. I'm a first generation college graduate. My dad didn't even graduate high school. My parents were clueless when it came to me navigating college. And I think that in the absence of that type of advisement and support and knowledge, I did well. I mean, I worked 2 jobs just to pay my way through school. And I just kind of came out and, I got a job. It didn't wind up being a career. That job then led to my position at Enterprise through a referral. And that's where I truly understood, wow, people can be really great leaders and mentors. And that's where my 1 month in, I was assigned a mentor, and he's still a mentor to this day. Paul Metz, he runs our truck rental division, and
shout out to Paul
and Commute. And he hired me, and he's someone who I looked up to as a mentor, and he's a go-to person for me from a professional, standpoint. And that's when it like hit me like, wow, this is, people really care about supporting me. And that's when I was truly into it. And I was like, I'm going to take advantage of every opportunity to build these relationships. And if somebody needs me, I want to do that. I get so much out of being a mentor to others. It truly is, like Philip said, it's giving back on a budget. But I think it's more valuable, budget or not. I get so much value out of that. And it wasn't until I came to Enterprise where I got to really kind of see what true leadership and support and mentorship looks like, and all the different ways it can look. Because prior to that, I didn't have it. I appreciate my experience prior to that. It makes me who I am. I'm proud of that background and, everything I've done to overcome those challenges. With that, it's what motivates me to help others that need that type of support. So as a first generation college graduate, as someone navigating business, as someone who's been in sales, as someone who's in HR, as a working mom, as a human, as a former high school shortstopper, I don't know, like there's a lot, it really does motivate me to always give back. I get tremendous value out of that myself. And I continue to seek out mentorship even in my professional career, because it's just part of my growth journey too. So.
Yep. And I appreciate the willingness to give back. Just for the record, I am not paying Jen or Phil to be here today, nor am I even paying myself. So
you're not?
No, I'm sorry. Paying you in gratitude.
Throw the link in the chat, the Venmo, the PayPal.
Where's the Venmo requests?
PayPal. Am I supposed to go? Okay.
Yeah, all you, man.
That was a good part. I thought I was doing shameless plug for how much money we can get. No, I mean, honestly, I think Jennifer said a lot, and so I don't want to be long-winded because I think I talk a lot. But I would say this, I said this a while ago, and I still hold firm to it, is that, in the book of someone's life, right, someone else's life, if I could just at least be one sentence, I feel like I did it. You know what I'm saying? Like, not a whole chapter, not like a whole chapter, like it says something like college life, Philip Wilkerson helped me, and then it's like the next chapter. I'm like, yo, I did it, because I realized that person's book of their life, right, that is a legacy, right? Like, it's touching multiple different things. And that for me, and it sounds maybe ego filling, and I'm okay with that, but like creating a legacy for me is really important. And what I mean by that is, like, I want to leave an impact. I actually want to matter. I actually want to have a purpose. I want to feel like I've mattered to someone.
I want to leave the world better than the way I found it.
Yeah. And like, obviously I want to make sure that I matter to my kids. I matter to my boys, so that when they grow up, they say, my dad was a good dad. So that's a part of investing in that. But I also just want to matter to a larger community, right? And so I find it so fascinating. Usually, when you see when how much people matter to people is when they pass away, right? And they don't ever talk about the things you have or the materials. They talk about how you made them feel.
Yep.
And I saw it vividly that, as I said earlier, my father-in-law, literally everyone was sharing that he was like basically a mentor to a lot of people. Like, they were saying, like, he listened to me, he helped me in my career. Young people, all these young people was like, I got involved in this. I wouldn't have done this if it wasn't for him. And sometimes, one funny story was people be calling and say, I love you. And he'd be like, who is this? He forgot who they were. Like his impact was beyond them, right? And so it showed me right there that is the human experience. We all really want to belong. We all want to matter. We all want to feel like we matter. And I feel like mentorship is a great tool to feel like you can matter, because that with this, whether it's that one phone call that you'll never see that person again or a long-term relationship, you did something tangible to help somebody. And you might not even see it. Like, you never know. Like, maybe your mentorship conversation was like you talked to them and you convinced them out of a career, but that saved their life anyway, right? Like, you never know. But it's just that's what holds me on to it. That really holds me on to staying in touch and just doing it, because like the unforeseen faith that I did something that mattered makes me feel good. And so thus I will always provide myself as a space to be a mentor. In regards to my bandwidth, it might be the one phone call and that's it, but I will always provide myself to do that. And I think similar to what Jen said, I think it's always going to be a part of my journey, because I already know, like I said, like maybe the next thing I want to ask, I need to know what the next step is in for my life. I can always try to find someone to give me a little bit of guidance on that, like that next layer of my life, and that feels good. It gives me some form of certainty in the unknown of the future. So I think it's really important.
Well, Phil, I can say with confidence, you matter to me. Jen, you matter to me. Both of you matter to me a great deal. I think you matter to a lot of folks who watch this live and also are watching it on YouTube. So thank you both so much for your perspective. This was a lot of fun. You can always tell a good fireside chat and a good panel when 70 minutes feels like 7 minutes. It's kind of the space that we're in right now. So thank you both so much for your perspective, and thanks to everyone for participating and for watching.
Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.